Chief,
Yes.
introduce Doc.
Oh, I'm always telling you about people I know and people that are behind the scenes of me personally and our group here of auditors here and everywhere else. And people say, BS, or I call my lie detector's going off. Well, here's the doc. He's one of several doctors I know. Some are medical doctors, some are psychologists, psychiatrists, what have you. And these people behind the scenes are all over the country, and these are the people that talk into our ears and feed us information, just like really, really good cops. There's several of them that are doing good things. The good things they're doing is they call me or David or the old man or PNP, somebody, and say, hey, we are a good cop. If we report upstairs, they're going to turn us the bad guy, turn to us like we're the bad guy and fire us. So they're saying, hey, can you expose these bad cops so we can get them out of here and get them away from here so us good cops can do our job right? And so a lot of times when we go somewhere to do something, we're doing it because good cops called us to come there. And people don't think about that. But the doc, he's on, and he's one of the people behind the scenes. One of many, many people behind the scenes. Hey, Doc, how you doing this evening?
I'm doing pretty good, and just enjoying this chat with you guys, and hopefully get some information out there for people that are observers and auditors, and more or less to kind of dispel the myth that there aren't people behind the scenes. I think there's more people behind the scenes than there are on point.
Absolutely. Now, you, along with some of your other colleagues, y'all examined that family cult, that lawyer-run family cult out in California. Can you tell us a little bit about that family cult, the psychology of those people?
Yeah, well, it's as they've been nicknamed the Merb Mansons, and that kind of fits. Merb scores high enough on the hair psychopathy test to be a psychopath, and the people that tend to follow them tend to be of the same mind, and they're just hanging themselves a little bit more every day. You know,
you think they're of the same mind, or do you think that they're weak-minded and just need to be a follower for somebody like him? Like Manson had, you know, his little family that followed him, but none of them were really strong-willed or exceptionally intelligent.
I'd say there's a mix. I can't lump everybody into one group, but certainly there are followers and there are wannabes and there are ones that just whatever. But there's a good selection. But the fact that they're not getting any new subscribers tend to make me think that they're all like-minded, and other people have taken a look and said, never mind, this isn't for me, and moved on. And that's probably why he only has like a 1/10 of a point of subscribers as compared to other people as their channels grow. As far as other things go, I would just say karma's coming for them. They don't know it, and I would tend to think there's enough people that are upset by them, because when they go down, there's going to be some guilt by association, even though they're not aired. All the people that are not up on point and are associated with them, karma's coming. That's just the way things work in the world. So
hey, I want to talk to you, Doc, and the guys out here listening. I say guys and gals. Most people just say guys. That's inclusive. Back when I started law enforcement in the late 70s, there was police unions. There wasn't, I don't think, near as many. And the purpose of the union, the main purpose, was to make sure that a lot of cops were working 50 to 80 or 90 hours a week. They weren't getting paid in their overtime. They were encouraged to skip their vacations because they only had so much manpower. So they were trying to pay you a certain amount of money as a salary, but work you like you was 2 or 2.5 people. Well, the unions made good sense because collectively you could go in and say, listen, you're gonna have to pay us more than you're paying us now, which is fair, and it's right for what we do. And they said, well, you gotta come up with your standards. We did. But they said, we're gonna put you onto a 40-hour work week, and you're gonna be able to get your vacations and stuff. So that was the main purpose. Well, in today's society, and when we used to say, we don't make the law, we just enforce the law, that was correct. But in the 90s, it started turning around. So we're coming into 30 years now that they've actually become very politically active. And so police, they come out and they say, what laws do y'all want? Not what laws will help society, what's fair and equitable, but what laws do y'all want to protect y'all and boost you up? Oh, well, we want this kind of immunity and that kind of immunity. Well, the only reason you'd want it is so you could go do bad and evil, and your job's protected, your pension's protected, all these sort of things. And they're making laws that only protect the police. Okay, these cities are paying these police unions to administer these contracts. They're doing all these different things to build this up. So they're not just enforcing the law, they're creating the law and enforcing the law and interpreting the law. So they used to teach us in the academy, it's not us against them. It's we're their servants and we work for them. Okay, so we're working for the people. Well, now it's just changed like it's a dang combat zone. I've been to some academies where I've gone as an observer, and they're teaching these guys, be scared of your own shadow. If you see somebody with a camera, you need to no comment, cut it off, get out of there, or find a way to box them in and let them talk, and then use that against them and put them in jail. So the reason they're scared of cameras is because the camera don't lie. The audio don't lie. And they are used to telling people what to do, and they just do it. If I'm a cop and I'm on the street and I tell you, hey, hold it, okay? They have to stop based on the presumption that I gave a lawful command. But, you know, sometimes it ain't apparent to everybody. If they say, hey, go over there and stand on your head, and you really can't do it. Well, then the cops today, oh, he didn't stand on his head, so I had to arrest him. He didn't obey my order. Well, guess what? It wasn't a lawful order. So there's a part of it. It has to be an officer that gives an order. It has to be necessary, and it has to be lawful. Right. So they're taking unlawful commands and turning it into you're interfering in government operations, you're obstructing, whatever the case may be. And that's a total fallacy. It's got to be legit to start with. You speak to that.
One of the things that I've noticed, Chief, is, and let's just come back and just talk about police unions. I will say that when they first started, they were perhaps a good thing. I actually myself in my past, I was a steward handling grievances in the union, so I'm not anti-union. But what I have seen is the police unions are evolving. They're evolving to an us-them mentality. They're not recognizing that they are servants. They are us and them. and there's there's a lot of things that are driving this. There's a lot of terrible things that are driving this, and this is basically tyranny coming in. This is how it starts. Somebody gets a little idea, and I can get away with that, and then push it a little further, and before long, everything is going to be a mess. It's everything is going on, and I just can't support the way the police unions are right now, and they're heavy-handed, and they're reinstalling cops that are being removed for legitimate reasons. They just reinstall them, recycle them, stick them somewhere else. That should not be the case. They shouldn't be. If the cop breaks a law, and he should be done. And as far as them interfering and don't want to be in front of a camera, let's say for example we had audits that were a cop block. Did they act differently when you're doing a cop block versus you just doing an audit? You guys are on point. You tell me, have you noticed a difference between cop blocks and audits, the way the police act?
Yeah, the old man here, he went down to DART, Dallas Area Rapid Transit Police, and he was in a public place, minding his business, doing nothing, and he got beat down, and they did other things I'm not going to talk about, but he got beat down for having a camera. And if I'm wrong, you can correct me, Mr. Old Man. But he was taking a picture or video of a car that had no front license plate on it. And he was going to say, if, this needs to be taken care of, but especially if it's a police officer. So the officer turned out that it was her car. She's the one that started the beat down on him and filed false charges and accusations.
There was a license plate there. It was black with a blue line across it. And I thought that was very unusual. So I went around to the rear of the car to take a video of that. And so I have the license there. It's interesting that that officer deleted that part of the video. But when I finally got my cameras and phones back and transferred that back, trying to get the files that they did not delete, I have a single photo of the front license and a single photo of the rear license, and I never took pictures. Everything was video. So they were upset. In fact, in the police reports, 2 officers, that officer and another one, conspired against me to say that I had attacked the police officer. And the videos show from my camera and from her camera that that's not what happened.
So their aggression towards being recorded or anything, and anything personal to do with them or whatever, I can, what do you guys keep saying? You're in public. It's the license plates are for the reason for being there, so you can make identifications. They're government property. They're not your personal property. They're issued by the government. And so that's an example of extreme. I've watched videos in different parts of the country, and I really think, at least for the Texas auditors, they've kind of softened the grounds a little bit. The police are not as aggressive down there, but in your case, it doesn't matter. They just don't care. But if you go up to other places in the country that are don't have as many auditors, or at least not high-profile auditors, the police are still just as bad as they were before you guys started. My hands off to News Now Houston, that he's done such a huge impact in the around Houston area and all around there, that seems to be the staple. That seems to be the go-to, and people respect him. They have a lot of respect for him. They see how he acts and how he does. And I tell you, I don't think I could do what he does.
Well, the bad cops don't respect me. They fear me. That's where it's at.
Yeah, I don't think I could do what you do, David. It's just like my alpha would just go straight off. That would be it.
Chief,
You
when you
know.
were talking about earlier about the lawful orders,
Yes.
there's a video out today, and I don't have the cop's name. It was down in Florida, and I can get the information. We have his number, but not his name right now, and I haven't been able to find out his name. But I think he was somebody, I'll say a sergeant or higher in the police department, and apparently he didn't know that the camera wasn't turned off. And all you see is a black screen because I guess he put it upside down or something. But he actually says in that video that if a cop tells you to jump up and down and with your finger in your ear, then you do it.
Mm.
That
That is a problem with I see a lot of the places. They think anything they say is you have to do it. It doesn't matter if it's a lawful order or if it's against the Constitution or anything else. You do it, and if you don't, you get a beat down.
yeah.
You guys, go ahead, Dave.
And false charges against you. Look, when I went to the academy, this is what happened. We were taught Adam 12, you know, you got to do it right. You got to do it right every time. You have to treat everybody fair and equal. You actually give people benefit of the doubt. You have to read the situation. And if there ain't nothing there, not only do you have to walk away, you're supposed to walk away. Okay? And they would teach us, we're here to help you, not harass you. And that's how I got the most respect, especially going on through the 90s and people starting to get a bad taste in their mouth with cops. They say, we come to you, Chief, because, you know, you've always used this motto, I'm not here to hurt you or harass you. I'm here to help you. You're my boss. You pay my bills, okay? I work for you. The only time that I get to be boss, me, is when you commit criminal acts or you're threatening to do them. Then that switch goes off. I'm the boss, and you're not no more. You can't tell me what to do now. Now I get to tell you what to do, and arrest you and take you to jail. The rest of the time, you're the boss. You pay the bills. You're the guy up on the hill, and I'm a servant in the field. You're the boss. Everybody knows you're the boss. You pay the bills.
Well, see, each of you have come to me, and others asked me to do a psychological evaluation of a particular bad cop.
Yes.
And each one of you and each individual case, and I've gladly taken a look at the videos and given you my evaluations, and you know, and certainly there are cops that are psychopaths that just want to torment people and do bad things to them just for their own personal pleasure. Then there are sociopaths, like for example the chief of Leon Valley fits that profile. Well, whatever you want to call him, but he fits the profile of a sociopath. All his behaviors, all you people are in his way, and he just needs to eliminate you for him to do what he wants to do. And that's the basic general description of a sociopath. If anybody wants to take a look at what a sociopath looks like, you can go take a look at Heath Ledger's final performance as Joker in the Batman movie. So that was an excellent portrayal. And then moving on down to Almost Park, that chief is just a bully. He went and hid in a hole when you guys did that Second Amendment march a couple of years back, and you know, and he just, you know, he's a bully if he has people around him, but you know, and he's just, that's it. And there's going to be a lot of guilt by association with his behavior with everybody else that's you know, empowering him and feeding him. I mean, that's just a simple fact. It's something that gets,
coward.
that doesn't
Hey,
wash off. That's with you for life.
Let me bring up something else. I have been asked, I don't know how many times the last year, I've been asked all along, but the last year it's gone up, and the last several months it's just gone through the roof. Do I believe in or support the thin blue line? I said, well, let me qualify that. The movie that actually come out, the thin blue line, about the I can't think of the guy's name that was arrested and in prison for allegedly killing a police officer in Dallas. And there used to be a moniker or a phrase, slogan, or something that we all hear: we're the thin blue line between all that is good and all that is bad. There's only so many of us, so it's a thin line to protect society. Okay, in that sense, you know, we're good guys. We're going out as peace officers, not law enforcement, peace officers, and we're obeying the law. We're giving correct, lawful orders. We're giving people benefit of the doubt. If somebody's having a problem cooperating or dealing with us, we give a little latitude and longitude, don't just jump into it. That thin blue line, I absolutely, unequivocally supported then and now. This over the top, overkill, 9/11 forward thin blue line, I do not support it in any shape, form, or fashion, because that has become like a Nazi slogan. You know, the swastika, that and the swastika has about the same meaning to me. Now, that I know lots of cops, they won't come out on TV or radio or interviews and say this, but they say, my department runs that freaking flag up there. Or they deface the American flag, especially the ones that's in the military, and said, I hate that. And if I could take that flag down and burn it, that's the American flag that's been defaced, I'd climb up that pole myself and burn it. But they can't come out and say that on TV or nothing. They'd be ostracized. So there's a lot more people that think like I do, but the unions push it psychologically. Unity, the city backs us, we back them, the state backs us, and so they're condoning bad behavior, and they created a symbol. And in the academy, they said when somebody has a symbol and they do bad things, that becomes a gang symbol. And they're all uniting under this.
One of the things that I'm seeing, and I think a lot of you will agree with this, that basically right now, in a lot of places, particularly where the unions are, it's a police state versus the United States.
Amen.
And there's, you know, it's not them, it's evolved to that point. It wasn't that way maybe 10 years ago, but it's certainly evolved. And I think, Chief, you had mentioned that there was a lowering of standards for hiring for police officers, which allowed much more questionable people to enter the law enforcement. I think you mentioned that to me, that because they couldn't get enough people, they lowered the standards to get enough people in.
Well, you know, I don't want to get into political warfare with nobody and ideology, but I do know that, for example, the guy, this is from my own research, the guy that way back when that become that chief that did the so-called investigation on David, he was what they call a level playing field hire. So people like him didn't really qualify, so they had to lower the standards to meet quotas. And when they did that, then it let that quota get in, but then it also let other bad people get in. So you created a substandard law enforcement agencies because you lowered the standards. You get lower standard people, and they don't properly know how to enforce the law. And then they had to have special promotions for people that didn't meet standards to promote them up to be a corporal or a corporal or a sergeant or lieutenant, and eventually get to be a chief or deputy chief somewhere, because it had to be all inclusive and represent the community.
Well, now we know what happened in Almost Park, how he got to be a police chief.
Talk to me.
Because they have extremely low standards. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, it wasn't, years ago, Austin lowered their standards. All right. And I don't know what year it was. It was years ago. They're talking about, they've either done it again or talking about doing it again. And it's already bad enough. If they lower it now, my God, Austin would be a war zone.
When you have people that you got a standard here and you're making payments, you're paying police salaries for this standard, and you have a decent department or agency, not perfect, but at least decent, acceptable, and the people in that community say, hey, we got some good comps around here, and they do exist. They're just not but a few places. Well, when you lower the standards, you're still given this much money, but you lower the standards, which actually should lower the pay, then you because somebody says, well, we're not letting the right politically correct people into the department because they can't make the standards. We have to lower it for them. Then you get riffraff in there and you get low achievers in there. You get bad things, but they're making big money like they was those standards. And it changes the association. It changes the mentality, the psychology. Doc will tell you about, when you lower the standards, you get a lower caliber person in there. And some of these cities that can't pay a decent pay for police, then they get substandard cops. And it changes the morale. And as a rule, you'll learn that more educated cops are usually more cool-headed.
Right, and that's true. And the other thing too, there's a classic experiment where they put a man in a room with a chimpanzee for a period of time and locked them in there together. And after that period of time, the chimpanzee remained the same, but the man had lowered his behavior to be compatible with the chimpanzee. So other cops may lower their standard. Good cops may lower their standards and not be as I guess I don't know what the right word is for this, but that's a classic behavioral study. But this one I want to direct at David and Steve. You guys have been around pretty much the longest. What changes in behavior have you noticed in general with the police attitude since you guys have started auditing?
David, you want to go first? I think we lost David. No, he's there. At least I heard something.
Yeah, I'm back. I had just walked out for a minute. I just walked back in.
Okay. The question is, you guys have been auditing the longest. What changes have you noticed over the years since you've been auditing? And just the basic personality and their behaviors, have they adapted to you as a precautionary?
Yeah, it varies by location.
Have they been educated?
It varies by location and by the type of officer that you're dealing with. Good officers don't care if you video, because if something goes wrong, they appreciate having another perspective, an extra set of eyes. As when I first started doing this, body cameras were not common. There's still a lot of departments that don't have body cameras. So the more angles that they can get, that it helps them when something goes wrong. Crooked cops don't want you videoing them because you're going to catch them doing wrong, and they can't dispute what's on camera. They can't fight it. I mean, it is what it is. It's an unbiased witness.
So premeditation is what you're saying.
Yeah. So they're going to oppose it no matter what. And a tyrant can't help himself. A tyrant is going to be a tyrant whether the camera's there or not. They just don't care. What has changed? We're seeing more departments with body cameras. We're seeing more departments that take action against officers who don't use those body cameras. We're seeing more departments that are using body camera footage and citizen footage to prosecute officers, or at least to terminate them. So there has been some headway. There has been some good that's come out of it. There's also been some bad. You've got people that are out there acting like idiots, getting themselves arrested, that are causing more regulations to be passed in some locations that limit what you can do more and more. So it's just like it always has been. There's always two sides to it, and there's positive that comes from everything, and there's negative that comes from everything. But by and large, I'm seeing mostly positive come from this.
Well, let me ask you a little bit more specifically, and I'll ask Steve the same question. What behaviors are there that are adaptive based on you, and defensive and or educational? What would you say that would be? Is you guys are looking to educate the public, educate the police, the bad cops adapt to you so they don't get in trouble, and the good cops, or whatever you want to call it. So what are you seeing?
The smarter of
it's kind of complex question. So
the smarter of the crooked cops are adapting, but even so, they still are screwing up. There's always going to be that time that they make a mistake and they get caught, and then they just can't. They forget to turn the camera off, or they don't let it run long enough to eat up the little preloaded portion of it before the camera comes on. They're trying to adapt, and for some of them it's working. The smarter of the bunch, but the less intelligent, the ones that just don't care that much, that are used to getting away with it and think they'll always get away with it, they're one by one, they're slowly but surely getting caught. So they try to adapt, but there's only so much you can do.
You're describing Almost Park, and yeah, you're describing Almost Park with Jack, where he just kind of went up and wrenched Jack's arm up without reason, pushed his arms away from each other. So you were pushing them together, you want to handcuff him, he deliberately pushed them away. He did that on camera. He was out of control with anger. He's a loose cannon.
Yeah, and he knew they have arrested Jack, 3 or 4 times, 5 times. They know his shoulders are screwed up. They know he's not going to resist. They know that he's not going to do anything. So when he acted out violently, he did that just to punish Jack because he knew he could get away with it.
And he said it earlier in the day that's exactly what he was going to do.
Yeah, he said he was going to do it.
That's premeditated deprivation of civil rights, and that is putting yourself in the position as the punisher.
Yeah, but that's also it's a violent act, and he has a gun. It's a felony.
Yes, of course.
Well, see, the choice of words gives it away, and where he said, "When I hurt you," is a definite thing versus "if I hurt you." So if I hurt you, you'll know it, or when I hurt you, you'll know it. When he says when, that says premeditation straight there. And that's one of the interesting things. If you listen to people's choices of words, it tells intent or not. It's very simple. This because the subconscious mind chooses the word.
Yeah,
we see a lot of the bad cops, and David pretty much explained it, but when we see the bad cops, their adjustment to the camera is to push you further and further back. Just like we saw with James and Bow a while back. They pushed him back a couple of 100 feet and threatened to arrest him if they didn't move back all that way for obstruction, which is another BS charge. We know that because we know what obstruction is. And obstruction is not standing there watching what they're doing. You have to physically get in their way. You have to do something to obstruct, not standing there with the camera watching them.
Yeah. That's Turner driver bait.
But it gives them away, too. I mean, when they do that, it's giving them away as now you know that they are a bad cop. So next time you see them, just keep watching for them and get them on camera every time you can, because they will screw up.
Yeah, and that's straightforward. As far as these things. So, Steve, what have you seen in changes over the years? matching what David says, or are you saying different?
Yeah, basically what David says. They adjust to the camera on their that they've got by turning the volume, turning off the audio when they're conspiring to do whatever they're going to do about the guy with the camera. But and what I talked about a while ago, but we've also seen them get better about it. The last time Jack and I were out together, the last couple of times, not one of the cops did anything. I mean, we walked into within 5 feet of the truck that was in a wreck one place. We stood there and watched them interviewing somebody on the street, which was a bullshit interview that they were doing. When I never put the video up because it was really no reason to. And the two people involved, I felt like they probably didn't need to be put out there because of the situation. And they requested to not do it, so I didn't do it. And Jack did the same. But in a police department where the leadership is either smart enough to know that they better be dang careful about the camera, or good enough to know that we got to leave these people with the camera alone. If you got bad leadership that are not very bright in the first place, you're not going to see any change in the police department. Now it's like Almost Park, Leon Valley.
Well,
San Antonio has got enough leadership that has, I'm not saying the leadership is good, because the police chief is I'll leave that word out, but he's smart enough to know that there's certain changes that we got to go along with, and we're going to do it.
Oh, some of the discussions that I've heard, and I'm actually hearing more of this, and I'm trying to just trying to gather bits of information, but there seems to be a movement of sorts where people are kind of coming together. They're fed up with the bad cops. They're watching people get arrested for quotas. And that's something I should talk to you guys about sometime in the future, about making a law where municipalities cannot put police tickets and fines as part of their budget. That's overhead. That's extra stuff that comes in. That should be outlawed, that they shouldn't be having that income as part of their budget. That should cut down on police tickets and abuses of public. But I am starting to see that there is a movement coming together. I'm just catching the first whiffs of it. But it seems to be becoming more and more organized. I've heard references of it recently on mainstream media, but they're probably targeting it the wrong way. I think these are just everyday people getting fed up with police overreach and bullying. I mean, we talk about what happened in Ferguson, Missouri, and people getting shot, and why people of color have more arrests than everything else. And it's people are just getting fed up, and I think it's just becoming a collective of voices to have to deal with it, whatever way they're going to deal with it. And some people mentioned that's what the Second Amendment's for.
Well, we have seen some changes, and it's for the better, although slow. But look, and if any of you cops, especially you bad ones, are listening, change is coming, and you're not going to be able to stop it, because every day we get more people realizing when they get pulled over or they get stopped by a cop, they're going to take your camera out and they're going to watch it, or the people around them are going to take your camera out and going to watch it. And every time there's a video put out there, that's one more step towards making sure that change happens. And it will happen. And they don't have a choice, but they're going to fight it as hard as they can. And they're going to they're going to say all kinds of stuff about us as much as they can. Oh, they're cop haters. Oh, they're dangerous because they're the type that'll do this, that, or the other, Well,
one of the things too, and activists are created. They're not born. And with Jack and Almost Park, I can't imagine how many new activists decided they've had enough watching Jack get jacked up for no reason at all, simply because the chief lost it.
And when they did that to CJ and Big Jim, I mean, look how many activists that got out there that time.
I'm talking new activists, people that were sitting on the couch, that now they're going to get out there and do something.
A lot of those were new activists. They weren't out there doing anything, but when they saw it, they came and joined.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
And-
public outcry is far worse than media in general want it to be. And guess what? The news media has become super trained to be a spokesman for the local police. They have one man or woman that is specifically trained in how to talk to the media and control the narrative. Now, I realize that there have been, and this is a pet peeve of mine, and I think it's right, and I think the American people will enjoy it. I realize that there are memorials to our fallen soldiers that have gone to foreign lands and fought to maintain our constitutional way of life. I understand if a police officer is heroic and he does something very heroic and saves children, little animals out of a burning house. I get that. But where there's a statue for fallen officers, and a lot of them were in highly questionable situations at minimum, and there's those statutes out on the courthouse grounds, where is the statutes for the people that were murdered by police? So if you're going to have the hero police over here, why don't you have the victims of the police over here so it's an even playing field? That ought to be politically correct enough for them. You know, 7 officers in this area died in this amount of time on the line of duty. Well, 10 times that died from bad police over here, and put their names down.
I think it's closer to 20. I think it's closer to 20 times. You know, I think it's
you're more likely to be killed by a police officer in America than you are to be struck by lightning.
Right. And that's if you're holding a lightning rod. You know, I just see that there's a deterioration, and, you know, but it's overall behavior. I look at everything collectively. I look at how the police behave, what they're saying, what the narratives, and it's pretty easy to find out when things are being manipulated, when they're holding back information for doing investigations. I can see that. I can tell it's about. But when things are just don't make sense, they don't add up, they're all wrong, that talks about corruption and covering up. And I have to say, with all honesty, a lot of that comes back down to the police union. People feel, bad cops feel that they can get away with anything and then just get reinstalled and work somewhere else. And that's definitely, you know, the whole purpose of corrections is take your things away and then you can earn your rights back. I mean, so there's definitely 2 tiers of behavior there. And that's,
as long as that thin blue line is there and they have qualified immunity. And if I go in front of the judge and I tell the judge, I didn't know that law existed, he's too bad. You're supposed
Right.
to know the law. But a cop will be on the street and tell you, oh, are you a lawyer, when you're explaining to him what the law really is? Oh, are you a lawyer? Well, no, but I have to know the law. You don't. You go to the judge and say, well, I thought it was against the law. Oh, okay, no problem. You're out of here. Kick Joe, blow loose here, and wait and see if he sues. If he has the money to sue us, then we'll have to deal with it then.
And so is that part of one of the things the police unions wanted to put in, one of those laws, so that they don't get stung? I mean, you know, all these little things, all these, like I said, that's, the police unions have evolved. They're looking to seat people in government that see their side, and that, you know.
Well, and the police unions, they pay for the police if they get in trouble, their court cases. When a cop goes to court on a case, like he charged me with jaywalking, he gets paid for it. I got to pay for it. I'm going to pay for it one way or the other. Even if I'm found innocent, I had to take off of work. I had to drive down there. I had to spend the day there waiting for court, whatever. But he gets paid. And the unions are into politics, so they back the unions, and they get all their police buddies and cousins and aunts and uncles and sisters and brothers-in-law to go out and support them.
Yeah. there's like I said, there are problems. I think, you know, from a psychologist point of view, there's things that are feeding it. There's, you know, it's like a tumor. If it keeps getting fed blood, it's going to grow. If we can cut off the blood, then the tumor will die and shrivel up and go away. But there's too many laws have been put in place that have, you know, empowered the police to be abusive. And I think that's the simplest way to put it. And if it's legislation that got them that way, then legislation has to be corrected.
Well, it's part of the American people's fault themselves, though, because how many times have you heard somebody said, well, we know that there's corrupt cops out there, but it's only like 1%. Well, we know it's more than 1%, a whole lot more than 1%. But let's just say it is 1%. That one cop is on the job for, say, 5 years. Well, if he's a bad cop, how many people's lives did he ruin? So these people that say, well, it's only 1%. So they do, no big deal. You know, it's okay. It's only 1%.
Until they get,
that guy
until it
just
happens to
ruined
them.
50 lives, 100 lives, 2,000 lives. Who knows?
Yeah.
But that's okay.
Yeah.
I'm looking at a number right now, 2017.
And again, that's.
And
Go ahead, John.
there were 749 people murdered by police, citizens, 1,149 during the calendar year 2017. And if I remember the number, it was around 109 officers lost their life that year versus 1,149 citizens that the police shot and killed.
Well, who was it? The police union guy in I can't remember his name there. The one that the one in Dallas area, whatever, Texas area. He said something about that. Well, we've only killed 79 people so far.
Only, yeah.
This year.
Only,
you know, so it sounds like it's a quota. You know, I mean, that's just coming across completely wrong. I forget his name now. He's like the number 2 guy now, got promoted or elected up to the number 2 position. But when you start talking like that and openly talking like that, that just really says where their head is at. And that's just something that's like, these are one of these little giveaways, the choice of words, how they say them with emphasis, or they're reserved or confidence or whatever. That's part of what psychologists look at to kind of read the people. And I've just unfortunately heard too many of those bad signals coming across from